Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Joan McKenna. I'm a resident and dispatcher in the city of Somerville. I'm here today in hopes to be considered for reclassification to public safety first responder, status group 2, retirement, bill number S.1674 and S.1730. When I was first hired as a dispatcher, the job may have resembled that of a clerical worker. As we answered phones, filled out cards, and entered into a computer the type of call to be dispatched. Today, the signals and tools needed to do this job would be overwhelming to anyone in a clerical position. Today, we are still answering phones. We are also answering text messages and soon video calls, making us not only the first responder you will come in contact with, but also the first responder able to see the scene of the emergency while keeping the caller calm and gathering information of the situation at hand. We as a group have appealed to our local retirement board twice, only to be turned down. We have appealed to PERIC and then on to DALA, only to be dismissed after 2+ years of back and forth appeal letters, show cause letters, again to no avail. What we have learned in all of this is the process is somehow broken. In the fact that the cases they have all referenced and quoted in making their decisions to deny are from the years 1984, 1998, and 2015, antiquated in comparison to today's responsibilities and duties of that of a 911 dispatcher. Today, our responsibility and capabilities have drastically changed since the inception of 911. Due to the advancement in technology, we are now not only able to answer phone and text, we also have GPS tracking, camera monitoring, shot spotter, shooter detection systems, radio transmissions from our department and other agencies in the event of mutual aid. Today, when a call comes in, our specialized equipment to track signals from cell phones and text give us the capabilities to find the location of the emergency, even without verbal communication when that's not possible. We are also able to help our hearing impaired community as TTY capabilities are built right into our system and tested regularly. We have a language line with interpreter services that we can conference in for any person who does not speak English. We have progressed the changing times and the needs of people, and yet we are still the most essential, non-essential workers when it comes to recognizing what our job entails and how we are classified. I know these bills have been brought forward many times. I think the difference now is that on a national level, more and more states, 22 as of today, are finally realizing just what we do and have reclassified their dispatchers as first responders. When we were at home when most were at home during COVID, pandemic 911, as well as all other emergency personnel were going to work, answering your call, keeping you safe when everything around you felt unsafe.
I need you to wrap up if you can.
Okay. So with that being said, I am 65 years old. I have worked 26 years and I'm not even close to full 80% retirement. It is very disheartening. I've stayed at a job I love in a city I have lived in my whole life, helping people that live there, most of whom I know personally. My hope is these bills will finally make it out of committee and onto the governor's desk for the final approval, making 911 an occupation where longevity becomes the norm and not the exception.
So thank you. Thank you. I appreciate
Thank you
it.
for your time.
Thank you. Before we move on to the panel, and I'm remiss because I didn't mention this in my opening remarks. We limit testimony in our hearings to 3 minutes. That was that noise, that alarm that you heard. No, that's okay, because I didn't say this before, but we do take written testimony for 1 week from today, 5 p.m. on the 25th.
Yeah.
And I did see that you had some prepared remarks that you were sharing with us. If you want to submit those written remarks, we will read it and we will consider all of it.
Okay.
So if anyone feels that they're going to go over their 3 minutes and have prepared something, give it to us. And if you haven't prepared it yet, write it, give it to us, and you'll still get to us. It's just that out of respect for the people who are behind you in line here and virtually, we just want to give everyone a chance without having to wait too long. Okay.
Try to go as quickly as possible.
That.
Chairman Brady, Chairman Gordon, and Joint Committee on Public Service, thank you very much for your time and consideration. My name is John Hickey. I'm a police dispatcher, E911 call taker for the Somerville Police Department in the city of Somerville. In the world of emergency response, 911 dispatchers are often the unsung heroes behind the scenes. We have a calm voice on the other end of the line during times of crisis, gathering critical information, coordinating resources, and ensuring that help arrives as quickly and efficiently as possible. We are answering over 80,000 calls for service each year, and during every call, we must keep the caller calm, gather information, determine the appropriate response while the situation unfolds before us. In addition to the normal calls, we are also providing assistance to the hearing impaired and non-English speaking community through TTY and interpreter services, ensuring that no one is left behind in a time of crisis. Throughout a dispatcher's career, we will spend hours listening to terrified callers in the most desperate time of need. Studies have found that 911 dispatchers often experience PTSD due to the high volume of distressing calls. The stress and fatigue associated with the job impacts our health and mental well-being as we listen and relay information related to gunshots, suicides, assault, pleas for help, crying babies, and a person's last breath. PTSD in dispatchers does not look any different than PTSD experienced from an individual that has been exposed to or involved in a disaster or has witnessed or experienced a violent or traumatic event. Unfortunately, the longer you do this job, the more likely you are to experience a decline in your own health. I have seen firsthand how the responsibilities of a 911 dispatcher have evolved since I came on in 2015. The technology around emergency communication is changing and evolving, and just as the home phone has become almost obsolete, the way in which emergency calls are answered is changing too. Very soon it will become common that when you dial 911, your phone camera will be activated, and 911 dispatcher will be seeing you, your emergency player live. We will be the first responder that is on scene first. Despite the increased responsibilities and capabilities of 911 dispatchers, the retirement classification has remained unchanged for years. We have recommended, requested, petitioned, and appealed to our local retirement board, PERAC, and DALA, only to be denied repeatedly. With references to outdated cases, these decisions do not reflect the reality of the modern day responsibilities of 911 dispatchers, which have significantly evolved with advances in technology and societal needs. The current classification and pay scale for 911 dispatchers often makes it impossible for them to reach full retirement, leading to some of the highest turnover rates for first responders. Dispatchers have already dedicated decades of their lives to serving the community, keeping them safe, and they deserve to enjoy the benefits of retirement at a fair percentage and proper group classification. It's time to acknowledge the contributions and make 911 dispatchers an occupation where longevity is the norm, not the exception. 22 other states have already led the way in reclassifying 911 dispatchers as first responders. It's my intent and my hope that Massachusetts will follow. In conclusion, the role of 911 dispatchers has evolved significantly over the years. It's time to recognize us as first responders. We are critical in emergency response, advanced technology capabilities, and unwavering dedication to public safety. We deserve proper classification. I'm asking you to please support the reclassification of 911 dispatchers for public safety first responder group 2 status. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to ask you when your panel is finished, then we'll ask for questions from the committee if we have.
Chairman Brady, Chairman Gordon, members of the Joint Committee on Public Service, thank you for your time today. My name is Anthony Landry, and I'm the political director of SEIU 888. I also was a former dispatcher for the Boston Police Department for 20 years. I'm also the director of the Commonwealth 911 peer support team, which provides crisis intervention services along with clinicians to our 911 dispatchers in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Dovetailing off of what our fine Somerville dispatchers have just brought forward, I'd rather just stick to the data here. What we're dealing with now is we all are aware of the great resignation that's happened for the past 2 years when people are looking for more desirable jobs.
Can I ask, can you bring the microphone over?
Oh.
The reason is the
Thank you. What we're dealing with right now is a crisis level staffing for 911, especially in the city of Boston. Right now, they're dealing with 30% job deficit there. People who have 15 to 20 years of service are leaving because they see no light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to their retirement. On top of that, a recent audit by Mission Critical Partners of 2019 Boston Police Operations, which we will submit here, also understands the fact that they are answering over 621,000 calls per year in the city of Boston and 35,000 unanswered in 2019. We have people working there who are working 64 to 90-hour work weeks for the past 3 years straight. How does moving retirement to a lower age help us with this issue? It works in a few ways. First, it makes jobs more desirable to new candidates. Knowing that they will not have to work 40 years absorbing the cumulative trauma is much more palatable than the current structure. Also, it will keep people in their jobs longer. How does that work? We're seeing current 911 personnel, again, with 10 to 25 years leaving their jobs. They don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. They're working 90-hour work weeks, and they are simply, the tread on the tires is falling off of these folks. How much financial impact does this have in the Commonwealth? Let's look at the following numbers. Between 2003 and February of 2022, out of approximately 130 former Boston Police 911 operations employees, less than 5% received their full pension. According to Zippia career experts, in a study comparing the stress levels of more than 600 jobs, 911 dispatchers ranked 13th on the list. Between 18 to 24% of 911 dispatchers show symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, similar to the rate of our sworn police officers. It is estimated that upward of 25% of all 911 dispatchers are now leaving their job after less than a year. A 911 dispatcher is in the top 10% of high turnover professions, comparable to EMTs and paramedic turnover. Understaffing and longer response times. If a patient is not breathing, they must wait 2 to 3 minutes or longer for an ambulance to arrive. The outcome could be fatal. We'd like to also thank the City of Boston and Mayor Wu this past Friday for making an executive order recognizing 911 dispatchers in Boston as public safety first responders, which we hope will help us with further legislation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if you could submit, you have a lot of information within your remarks.
Mhm.
And so some of those surveys that you're mentioning and the sources of that would be helpful to us to see. So if you could follow that with written testimony, I appreciate it. And I think we all recognize that with the advent of the modern communication technology, GPS technology and all, you ought to be handling calls in real time that has traditionally or historically you would never have been dealing with. And so you're there more on the front line than ever before. So we'll continue to look at this, and we appreciate your testimony. Chairman
I
Brady.
just thank you all for your testimony.
Thank you. Anyone?
I just want to say thank you to my constituents for coming in to testify today. And it was really helpful to learn about how much this job has changed over the years and how much it is, we're rethinking the ideas of what is occupational health and safety and what the impacts that it has on stress. And I was just wondering if you could just add, because I know a lot of you have worked for decades, right, in this profession, and could just like share a little bit more, because I know it got cut off a little bit on the testimony, just so in terms of the stress and how that impacts the workforce and the retention issue as well.
Sure. So I think it's, I've been given the example, you have somebody, let's say an officer or somebody that's even like a military experience. They may have 2-3 months of severe trauma and just kind of craziness, and that impacts it greatly for the rest of their life. We have little bursts throughout the days, throughout the months, throughout the years of these high stress incidents that compiles over 20-25 years to something that is, horrific and causes some serious stress for the 911 dispatchers who are listening to this day in and day out. Imagine your worst day and then hearing that and then trying to communicate proper services to those people each and every day, year after year. It gets stressing.
In my capacity as a peer support director, we work with clinicians from the On-Site Academy in Westminster, Massachusetts, and we accumulate data regarding this. And of course, 911 is so far behind. We're kind of doing the infant stages of it. But one thing's a guarantee. Every time you take a call, whether it be your first day or your 100th year, if you're that lucky, your body doesn't care how the exterior reacts. You may be calm, cool, and collected. Your body still goes into fight or flight mode every time you hear the bell ring. So you don't know what you're going to have on the other end of that phone. Over 30 chemicals deploy into your body to help you focus on the call, which is a great thing in the moment. It keeps you focused, adrenaline, cortisol. But the problem is, because of the staffing shortages, these folks aren't able to actually get in activity to burn off these chemicals, because over the long haul, cortisol, if you don't burn it off within 48 hours, it ends up settling into the arteries of your heart, which is why we have things like the heart bill for police, fire, and EMS, because there's known studies on them and the toll that it takes on their body. What we're also seeing is when you take a crisis call, If you're able to have a debriefing within 24 to 48 hours after, it mitigates these effects. It helps healthy coping mechanisms. Police generally have debriefings within the first 48 hours. It's still an upsell pitch for folks because there's still optics that because they're civilians, you don't get exposed to the same things as police, fire, and EMS, which is woefully incorrect, especially now because we're about to enter the text to video phase, which has launched this past December. State 911 Middleborough has it, Boston has it, which is great. You're going to be able to, if a child is missing or an elderly person is missing and they have their cell phone on, they're disoriented. You can send a link to that phone. They tap on it. Now you can see their surroundings. You may identify a landmark, but let's talk about the flip side of the coin. Let's talk about the violent domestic. Let's talk about the person who's off their medication having an episode. These dispatchers are going to be a captive audience for these situations. And then you hang up and a call comes right in. That's just the way it goes. Again, I allude to 34,000 calls went unanswered in 2019. And the staffing in 2019, I can personally speak to because I worked in this environment, was higher than it is right now. We're still dealing with 30% deficits in the state's capital right now and across the state. Nationwide, there's a 25% deficit. We feel that this helps twofold. It helps protect the person in the chair to make them say, oh, you know what, I'm going to hang in a little bit longer because it's not so far away, the retirement. It's also going to entice new employees who are aware, our youth or our new leaders. They're aware of the fact that they need to be in a workplace that takes care of them on multiple levels. If I'm exposed to trauma, how is my workplace going to take care of me? And a part of that component is having a reasonable amount of time to work. 40 years, I can just, be quick about this. 40 years as a dispatcher in Boston, working 64 to 90-hour work weeks, means that you're experiencing just about 700,000 calls during your career. That is a lot to ask from a human being in general, especially now with the advent of our new technology. It's what you would hear for trauma is now taking on a whole new wrinkle with you actually being able to see it. And that's my closing statement on that. And I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your service to our city.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So Rep. Doherty, you're on virtual.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you to Chairs Gordon and